and record it. At least our video system is working today. Actually, I need to take that. Before I do that, Kathy, and Rohan, Alex, let's see. Daniela, Lisa, Benjamin, Daniel, and out there we've got Kenya, Tammy, and Tina, and okay. So I got the same people, a couple people who aren't showing up on a regular basis, not showing up. So I have to get in touch with them. What's been going on? All right. So today we're going to get started. We're going to talk first off about just a couple of small little issues regarding the FLSA. We're going to talk about the child labor restrictions that are part of the FLSA. Remember, the FLSA has 4 main parts to it: overtime protections, minimum wage protections, child labor protections, and record-keeping requirements. So we already talked about the overtime and the minimum wage. We're going to do some calculations today with regard to those, because you've got, in your homework, you've got a lot of calculations that you have to do. But I want to get started just talking about those last 2 very briefly. They're not nearly as involved as talking about the overtime and minimum wage. So the child labor restrictions. Now, if anybody under the age of 18 there are certain safety restrictions, and depending upon how young the individual is, there are some restrictions on what hours they're allowed to work and how many hours they're allowed to work. It cannot interfere with school. School is the priority for those younger workers. There's also a little bit of a difference between farm occupations and non-farm occupations. Farming is kind of a unique occupation. A lot of times it's families that will own farms, and multiple members of those families will work on the farms. But at the same time, we've got a lot of dangerous equipment. So a lot of the restrictions with regard to younger workers have to do with the hours, so it does not interfere with school, and safety concerns, right? So in non-farm occupations, individuals aged 16 and 17 can work an unlimited number of hours each week in non-hazardous jobs. So they still are restricted from working in hazardous jobs, but they can work an unlimited number of hours. Now again, there may be state laws in certain states that restrict the work of minors more so than the FLSA does. In Iowa, there isn't. We pretty much follow the FLSA to a T. 14 and 15-year-olds are limited to what positions they can hold. They can work in retail, food service, and gasoline service. There are some specific conditions that have to be met with regard to the hours. This is where the schooling comes in. But you've seen, Fairway has this. They at least they used to hire a lot of much younger workers. I think they would start hiring kids at maybe age 15 or even 14. I know my Fairway, I would see, some freshmen up there working, doing some bagging. I don't know if they still do that. It seems to be, I haven't seen that as much recently, but that was always an example that I would give in class is, Fairway. Those kids would be allowed, but they can't do it during school hours. It cannot interfere with school. There isn't really the restriction for those that are 16 and 17, but once you get to the age of 15 and below, then there are restrictions on the number of hours that they can work. Okay. And again, so I just want to, everybody out, all the virtual students can hear me, correct? Just raise your hand if that's a yes. Good. Okay. Cool. Oh shoot. Now I can't see which side I was on. It's not working. this room. All right.
Hey.
Hi. So it's just the audio. I've gone through all of the microphones to try and they can hear me. I can't hear them. So we're back to the original problem.
Okay.
There we go. Can you guys say something?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Oh,
Yep. So
okay.
Hello.
right here. There's it. And then you can also check.
Now I can hear you guys.
That's the master.
Okay.
So if you ever are low, always check that guy.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Easy
Sorry,
fix
I didn't
this
even
time.
see that was,
Hey, no problem.
that was lit. Okay, thank you. Excellent. I'm glad you guys can hear me, or I'm glad I can hear you now, and you can hear me. And we can see each other. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so let's continue on. What was I saying? Oh, I was looking for, this is my next screen, wasn't I? Which is, okay, so now I can actually do this as a slideshow. Hold on. There we go. Okay. All right, so agricultural, as I mentioned, agricultural occupations are a little bit different. Children can actually be younger and work in agricultural occupations. Any of you ever detassel corn in the summers? This was a thing when I was young. I would have friends that, yeah. It's pretty hard work. Yeah. It's very hard work, and it's obviously it's in the summer, so it's hot, and there are lots of bugs that are involved. But this is one of those jobs that a lot of younger kids would do to earn a little bit of extra money. So in agricultural occupations, kids as young as 12 can work in those occupations. Again, as long as they're safe, as long as they aren't hazardous. Now, you can argue that being out in 100-degree heat all day might be hazardous, but it's not, equipment. They're not working with equipment that is dangerous. Children aged 10 and 11 can work as hand harvest laborers outside of school hours only. And this is actually where I didn't know anybody that young who did it, but this is actually where the detasseling can occur. So 10 and 11-year-olds, but only between June 1st and October 15th. So they can assist in harvesting. Obviously, there are some very strict limitations on that with regard to safety and working conditions. And the employer has to have a certificate of age that shows that the minor has reached the minimum wage, the minimum age in order to work in that position. There are some very serious fines for violations. Obviously, when we're talking about children, we have to make sure that they're working under safe conditions, and so any violations are extremely serious. So those are just kind of an overview of those child labor restrictions. Let's see here. We already talked about work time and non-compensable activities. Okay, so record keeping. Let's move on to record keeping. So there are certain records that have to be kept per the FLSA. Now, it doesn't mean that employers can't keep records in addition to this. But these are the minimum records that have to be kept in order to be in compliance with the FLSA. Again, states may have more stringent restrictions or requirements with regard to record keeping. Timesheets. So the timesheets have to indicate the arrival and departure time of the employee. This, of course, is for hourly workers, but oftentimes even salaried workers will keep track of their time, especially if they're in a profession where they bill for their time. So like attorneys and accountants who are billing clients, they'll still keep track of their time. And oftentimes that will become part of their performance review as well. That's one of the stressful parts of being one of those professionals is there are expectations that you get a certain amount of billable time in, time that they're not just paying you for being there, they're paying you so that you can bill clients. Time cards. So as opposed, time sheets would be like on the computer, that sort of thing. Time cards, punch in, punch out, or like the scanners and all that stuff. Again, recording the hours worked, rate of pay, deductions, and net pay. Some computerized time and attendance recording systems are acceptable. So these card-generated systems, badge systems, cardless, badgeless, and personal computer-based systems. That should be 2 words. Also, sometimes the biometric is used, especially in those fields where there's the risk of what do they call it? The espionage. Like if it's a very highly secure type of work environment. So like defense contractors, those types of things where they need to know who's coming and going. Iris scans are another method that's used. Touch screen kiosks, just like they have at McDonald's now. Clock in that way. Pretty soon we're not going to need any people to do anything except to design kiosks and and all of those systems. Internet, and obviously this has become more common in recent years with COVID and a lot of people working from home, log into the system, keep track of the time and everything that way. So somebody have a question out there? Or was that just my? Okay. Yeah, so different, it doesn't really matter what how high tech or low tech the record keeping is. It has to take place and records have to be kept for that. All right. So those are the record keeping, again, an overview of the record keeping requirements. Any questions about the child labor or record keeping or anything up to now? We are going to start to do some calculating now. So.
For the child labor, it only applies to family-owned businesses?
No, so I was just giving that as an example that, there are a lot of times it's families that work in agricultural field, but no, it's not just family. It doesn't have to be a family. So I don't know why that's dinging. Now I hear everything. Okay, so let's start calculating, shall we? To my page here. Okay, so we have different pay periods that an employer can use. Different pay periods. And an employer can use multiple pay periods for different classes of employees as well. And oftentimes that will happen. For example, maybe if it's a construction company. Construction workers like to get paid every week. Just from my experience in my work life. They like to get paid every week. So you may have the construction workers who are paid 52 times a year, every week. And then maybe the office workers get paid twice a month and executives get paid once a month. That is fine. You can have multiple pay periods for the same company. It's best to keep those consistent. Don't change them up frequently. It does make it a little bit more complex for the payroll department to keep track of all of that. And as well for the accounting department, because every time the accounting department, or every time the payroll, it is, I don't know. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm sorry, 38, it's right there. You guys, they wondered what slide number we were on. De nada. What was I saying? So it's good to be consistent. I can't remember. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, these are the most common pay periods that are used. And these are the ones that in our calculations we're going to be using as well. Now there are additional pay periods. There can be daily pay periods. So mostly those would be, day labor type positions where the person it's calculated every day. Oftentimes those payments are done in cash, but that does not, if they're an employee, that they are still subject to withholding, tax withholding. So payment in cash when there's tax withholding involved is a little bit complex, right? Now you're dealing with pennies and nickels and dimes and all of that. So, in most cases, payment by check or direct deposit or even pay card is easier if you've got somebody who is working well for any of these pay periods. So weekly means 52 pays in a year, 40 hours basic, 40 hours in each pay period. If you do the math, 52 times 40 equals 2,080 hours. Okay? So that will be helpful to you to remember the 2,080. This is for a 40-hour week. Because when we look at salaried non-exempt employees, so these are people who get a set salary every month or every week or bi-weekly, but they're entitled to overtime pay. We've got to calculate what their hourly rate is. So if they normally work 40 hours a week, this is really easy. We could just divide their annual salary by 2,080 to get that hourly rate. Bi-weekly, 26 pays per year, 80 hours each pay period. Now, if you do the math, it's still 2,080 hours, right? Semi-monthly, and it's easy to get these two confused, bi-weekly and semi-monthly. Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Semi-monthly, twice a month. Okay, so with the weekly and bi-weekly cycles, is that you're kind of, so for example, bi-weekly, every other Friday is payday, every other Friday. So that means you're going to have 2 months during the year where there's going to be 3 pays, right? With a semi-monthly schedule, it's always going to be twice a month. It's always going to be on the same dates every month. So maybe the 1st and the 15th, or the 15th and the last day of the month. Those are very common pay dates for a semi-monthly cycle, but there's no requirement that they be on those days. They could be on the 2nd and the 16th. They could be, it doesn't really matter as long as it's consistent and all the calculations are done correctly for a semi-monthly. And then monthly pay schedule as well is very common. That means you get paid once a month, maybe the 1st of the month, 15th of the month, last day of the month, that sort of thing. Now, when we're looking at the weekly and bi-weekly pay periods, it's really easy. You're always going to be paid on the same day of the week with those pay periods, right? So every other Friday or every other Thursday, or if it's weekly, every Monday. It's going to be the same, and the same number of days are going to be contained within that pay period. It's always going to be 7 days or 14 days in the pay period. It makes calculating overtime super easy. When we look at semi-monthly and monthly, now we get a little bit more complicated, especially when we're talking about overtime. It's not going to be paid on the same day every time. Some pays it'll be a Wednesday, and then the next pay a Friday, and then the next pay a Tuesday, and the next pay a Wednesday. It just depends on the month. February is the only month where it's nice and even because we've got four equal weeks. But it gets a little bit complicated when we're talking about overtime, because now we may have pay periods that end right in the middle of the week. So these are the overtime week could be different from what that pay week is. So you have some overlap. So if you think about it this way, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So let's say we have a company and this is our overtime week. Remember, we've got to choose 7 consecutive days for that overtime week, and these are the days we've chosen. Well, if our pay period ends on Wednesday, now we'll assume they only work Monday through Friday. Now we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that we're going to have to consider when we start the next pay period. Because they may start working, somebody may start working some overtime on Thursday. Maybe they already worked 40 hours in that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they work again on Thursday. Now in the overtime week, they have overtime, but in our pay period, we're just starting the pay period. Same thing for monthly, right? So you've got that overlap. So there's some complications that can occur with that. You'll see as well when we get to the last chapter that the pay period also usually doesn't match up with the accounting period. So we have an accounting period end where we have to do reporting, but we're in the middle of a pay period. So you'll see when we work on journal entries that we have to accrue some of those expenses that haven't been paid yet. Okay, so there are some timing issues, both between the overtime week and the pay period, and between the pay period and the accounting period. Okay, does that make sense? Questions about that? No? Okay. All right. So again, these are the most common. These are the ones that your textbook is really going to focus on. I don't know if there are any calculations for daily. I don't think there are. I could be wrong. Okay. So yeah, so now we're on slide number 39. So sorry, I need liquid. Now we're going to look at how we calculate some overtime. There are 2 methods of doing it. The one that we are most familiar with is this common method. That's why it's called the common method, where we're taking the regular rate of pay, multiplying it times 1.5 to arrive at overtime pay. There's actually another way to do it, and it's called the overtime premium approach. And we actually have to use, they're both gonna result in the same number, the same amount. Both of them will get to the same place. But this overtime premium approach, you'll see we actually have to use that in a couple of circumstances. When we get to talking about fluctuating work week, which I hope we can, what time we got? Yeah, hopefully we can talk about that. That particular topic and calculation is confusing to a lot of students. It's confusing to me too. I have to reference my notes every time I do it. But we will be using this overtime premium approach when we are doing that calculation. Okay, there's some black. We'll give it a try. So again, our common method, we're just going to take our regular rate times 1.5 to get our overtime rate. And in order to calculate what our overtime is, then we would take our regular rate times hours, regular hours, to get our regular pay. And then for overtime, we would take we did our calculation up here, overtime rate times overtime hours to get our overtime pay. Okay, so for example, $10 is really easy. Here, regular rate times 1.5, 10 times 1.5 is $15 an hour. If we worked 43 hours in a week, then we would take 40 times 10. Oops, I did it backwards. 10 times 40. Let's see. So I'm consistent. So $400 for our first calculation. Now we take our overtime rate, 15, times the number of hours over 40, 45, 45. Okay. Fairly straightforward. Any questions about that calculation? Again, this is the common method. So we're using that 1.5. The overtime premium approach, we do a little bit differently. We take we don't have an overtime rate. Our overtime rate is actually going to be our overtime premium rate. I'm going to rename that. Right. We still have 43 hours that we're going to work with, still $10 an hour. What we do is we take our regular rate times our total hours. Okay. So in this case, we would take the 10 times 43 to get 430. Let's erase these. And then what we're going to do is take our overtime premium rate, just to distinguish it between our regular overtime rate, which now we have to figure out what our overtime premium rate is. We're going to take the $10 an hour times 0.5, half, so $5 an hour. We would take our overtime premium rate of $5 an hour times our overtime hours. So 5 times 3 is 15 to come up with 445. Same result, right? We arrive at the same place. In most situations, when it's just an hourly employee, that common method, I should say that. Now this one's the premium method. When it's just an hourly employee, that the common method is the easiest one to use. But there are some circumstances under which we have to use this premium approach. Okay, questions about these two? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so in SSI, you have choice to take one system. If you want the first system, you can take it. If you want this one, you can take it. You guys want to impose?
Oh, well, I mean, it's up to the employer, first off. Yeah, I mean, the employee, the employee probably doesn't even know how the employer calculates it. But because we're going to arrive at the same number, it doesn't matter which one the employer chooses to use. It's just that there are certain circumstances where we have to use this just in order to calculate it properly. We have to use it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I bet you didn't know there were 2 ways to calculate overtime, did you? Mm-hmm. It's true. All right. Any questions out there in virtual land? I'm not looking at you, I guess I'm over here. No? All right. So now, what if we have 2 different pay rates? That's a little complicated. So I use that example, you're a server some of the time, and then you're a host some of the time. Well, what if you worked overtime during that week? What rate, and you're making 2 different rates, at what rate do you get paid overtime? There are 3 different ways that it can happen. In this case, yes, the employee has to agree to it, okay? Or at least has to be informed of how the calculation is done, because these 3 methods do not result in the same number. Right. So let's look at those. Maybe I just won't use blue anymore. The blue seems to be a problem. is more fun than talking about laws. Okay, so our three different methods are, let's have, well, did they give us an example here? Yeah, I guess they do give us an example. So that's supposed to, and I'm probably doing it wrong. Oops, not that. Stop. This is what I want. Okay. So we've got two different pay rates. We've got somebody making $10 an hour in one job, $12 an hour in another job. Our first choice is just to pay overtime at the higher rate. Doesn't matter when they actually worked that time. So again, if it's a server, they make $10 an hour as a server, but they make $12 an hour as a host. If we just pay at the $12 an hour, we don't have to keep track of, okay, when did they work that overtime, right? We're just going to automatically pay at that higher rate. This is going to end up result in the highest gross pay for the employee, is this method. So, for example, like I said, 10 and 12, maybe they worked a total, again, 43 hours. Then we would have 40 hours here. And we would multiply out our overtime rate. It's a 5. So we've got, what is that, 16? Is that right? 18. Yeah, thank you. You'll notice as the semester goes on that sometimes I'm not real good at you know how they say, oh, you're an accountant, you must like math. You must be really good at math. No, I'm really good at using a 10 key. That's what I'm good at. 18 times 3 equals, let's see, 36 plus 18, somebody help me out here, 54. Okay, so 454 would be our total gross pay under these circumstances. We don't know when those 3 hours were worked. They may have been worked when they were earning $10 an hour, but we don't care. We're just going to go ahead and pay them at the higher rate. Okay. So that's the one that will result in the fewest complaints from employees, right? And, you know, because if you do, you'll see with this next one, you do have to keep track of when they worked that overtime, and there could be some dispute over when that overtime was actually worked. And also sometimes, you know, if you're going back and forth between jobs at different rates during the day, it becomes really complicated to try and manage that. Okay, so the second method, or actually I was talking about the third method. The second method is actually the most complicated of the two methods. The third method is where you do have to keep track of when they worked those hours. So for example, I'm gonna do the third one next, just because it's easier than the second method. So let's just say they worked 43 hours, 21 at their $10 an hour rate, and 22 at $12 an hour. But we have to know, okay, well, when did they reach that 40? And let's just say they worked 1 hour of overtime at 21 and 2 hours of overtime at 10, 2 hours of overtime at 12. So we've got to figure out, okay, so we've got 20 hours of regular at $10 an hour, right? And then we've got 1 hour of overtime at $15 an hour. And then we've got 20 hours of regular at $12 an hour and 2 hours of overtime at $18 an hour. So then we calculate all of that out. So here we've got 200 plus 15 plus, what is it, 240 and 36. So then we'd add all of that together. So 1, 7, 8, 9, I have that right? 491 would be their total pay. So we've determined, okay, they worked, these were the specific hours they worked in overtime. We're going to pay them at that rate. Again, this is the third method of this. I don't think that's a question. Oh. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay. So again, that's the third method. The second method is the one that requires a little bit more math. So we're going to calculate the total earnings for all jobs, and then divided by the total hours worked, and take 1/2 of this rate and multiply it by the overtime hours. So we're averaging it, essentially. We're averaging that overtime rate. So in this case, let's look at the math here. So we'll take the total earnings for all jobs. So 21, so 210 plus, what do we say that was? 240 plus 24 is 264. Do I have that right? 4, 7, 5, no, 4. I thought I had to carry there. Okay, so total earnings for all jobs divided by the total number of hours worked. So we're going to divide this by 43 hours. Get our calculator. I'm pretty sure you guys can't do that in your head either, so. So 474 divided by 43. So 1102. So this is kind of our average wage. Then we're going to take 1/2 of that rate. That was a question. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I'm having trouble seeing this, so I'm trying to see if I got the numbers that you got.
Okay.
210 plus 264.
Yeah,
Oh, you're still doing the 21 at 10 and the 22 at 12?
I'm using the same example. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks.
No problem. Okay, so let me put this over here so everybody can see it. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more for you guys. See if that helps. There we go. Okay, so 1102 then is our average rate. We're going to multiply that, and you'll see we're going to multiply by 1/2, not by 1.5. So this is one of those times when we have to use that overtime premium approach. Okay, so 1102 times 0.5, because essentially we've already included the full rate in this calculation, right? Now we just have to add that extra 1/2 on, but only for the 3 hours of overtime. All right, so make this bigger so everybody can see it. Come on. All right. So 1102 times, or divided by 2, also known as 551. And then we're going to multiply that by the amount of overtime that was worked. All right. So take 1/2 of this rate, multiply it by the overtime hours. 551 times 3 equals, what is it, 1653? Do I have that right? Yes? Okay. So then we're going to add that to the 474. So 5309 490.53 would be the total pay if we're using the second method. So does anybody remember what the result was with the first method? If it was just 40 times, so method 1, so this is method 2, it was 454?
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong then?
It was 491.
491?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the second one was. Okay, so this is method 2. Method 1 was how much? 454.
Yeah, that's the first one.
The third one is 491.
Third one was 491.
Uh-huh.
So maybe did I use a different,
Yeah.
oh, did I use different numbers for the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do the first one. So it would be what? So we'd have 40 or 20 hours at times 10, and we'd have 20 hours times 12, and we'd have 3 hours times 12. I'm sorry, 18. 18. Yep. Yeah, Lisa?
No, I'm sorry. That hand was up from before. I just didn't put it down.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, so we would have 200 plus 240 plus, what was it, the 54? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was 94. So 494, so this is method 1. So method 1, 494. Method 2, 490.53. And method 3, which was, we took the actual overtime hours worked, multiplied it by the rate during that time. Does anybody remember what that one was?
491.
That one was 491. Even?
Even.
Yeah. Okay, so 3 different rates, or 3 different pays we arrive at here. Again, first one's gonna get you the highest pay. It would depend on which one of these would get you the highest. But essentially, this is just, yeah, getting an average rate between the two and then using that to calculate the overtime rate. Questions? Yeah, Lisa.
Okay, it's again, I guess on the number 3 method. I'm going to make sure that I have the same numbers that you have. It's it's going to be the 1102 times 3 hours because you take.
Well, this is the, I did these out of order. I'm sorry. I did the first example, I did the first method here that's listed, and then I did the third method, and then I left the hardest one for the last one, which was the second method. So the first method, we're just taking the 3 hours are just automatically paid at the higher rate. The second method is where we averaged the 2 rates in order to get what the overtime rate would be. And that's where we arrived at this. The third method is where we determined, okay, 1 hour of overtime was at $10 an hour, 2 hours of overtime was at $12 an hour. And so we were very specific about when those hours were worked. Does that make sense? I took them out of order because I wanted to go in order of which was the easiest to most difficult. Whereas I think your book went from, no, I don't know why they went that way. I was going to say maybe because it increased in value, but that's not the case. Does that help?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had locked off my phone. I'm steady talking. Okay, on the second one, the one that you took the average, you said you had 210 plus 264, and
Yes.
that equaled 474.
Yep.
And then you took 474 divided by 43 because it was a total of 43 hours.
Right.
And you got, because I got 11.0232, and you said you got 11.53.
No, I got 11.02. I rounded it just to 11.02.
Okay, so I rounded to 11.2. I mean 11.02. So you take 11.02 times the 3 hours, right? Because it's 3 hours overtime.
Nope.
Okay, that's where I'm getting lost. Okay.
You take the 11.02 and you half it. So multiply it by 0.5.
I heard you say
We're
that and I
using the
didn't do it.
We're using the overtime premium approach with this because we've already included the full hour of overtime in this calculation, in the first calculation. And are you on the phone? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if you can, where I'm pointing. We already included the full hours, the full regular
Right.
hours in the calculation. All we're adding now is that extra half.
Okay, I heard you say that and I didn't do it. And then I didn't have the same number. So, okay, thank you.
Yep, you bet. Questions? Yeah.
So this is the two jobs combined, right?
This is when they work two jobs in that same pay period. Yep, and you've got the choice, the employer has the choice which one they're gonna use. They have to make it clear to the employee how it's gonna be calculated. So if they choose to do the averaging, you've gotta make it clear to the employee, this is how we calculate your overtime. The employee really doesn't have a choice in the matter, it's the employer's discretion, but there does have to be full disclosure about it.
So with the tip employees, do they get overtime?
Yes, so we're gonna go through, I think we've got an example as well to go through for tipped employees with overtime as well. Other questions? Good questions. Okay. Excellent. Let's see. We're gonna look at some examples now. Now we got 3 different pay rates. So we got Oshiko worked for Tinto Incorporated in 2 capacities. Job A paid $14.50 an hour. Actually, I'm sorry, 3 different examples. Sorry. 3 different examples and using the 3 different methods here. He worked 37 hours at the job that paid $14.50 an hour. And then the second job, he worked $11, or it pays $11 an hour, and he worked 6 hours at this. The overtime hours were 3 hours. All right, well, we don't know in which capacity he works that overtime now, do we? This isn't enough information. It's just saying he worked 3 hours of overtime. They haven't told us what job was he doing when he worked the 3 hours of overtime, right? So we can't even use the third option because we don't know. We can only use the first or the second option here. Using method 1, again, we're going to take the $14.50 times 37 hours, the $11 times 6 hours, $602.50 for the total pay. And we're going to calculate the overtime premium based upon the $14.50 an hour. And we're just going to assume that that's when he works that overtime. It doesn't really matter. We're going to pay him at that higher rate. Okay. So the $14.50, we're going to add the overtime premium. Add those 2 together for a total pay of $624.25. Okay.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to just assume the 1450 or how that works?
Well, it says up here $14.50. Yeah.
For the overtime rate.
Because we're using method 1, that first example, we are automatically going to pay at the higher rate. We don't know when he worked that. And if you don't know when they worked the overtime, then you only have 2 choices. You can use the first method or the second method. You can't use the third method because the third method requires when those hours were worked. Right? Okay, so that's the first. Any other questions? Okay, now we'll look at method 2. So same person, job A, $14.50 an hour, 37 hours, job B, $11 an hour. He worked 6 hours at that $11 an hour. Let's see. Overtime is 3 hours. So we're going to start with the regular pay. Let me see, playing around with this stuff. I'm gonna want to go back to the last screen real quick. Okay, so this is where that 602.50 is coming from. So we can just start with that number in method 2. Because what we're calculating, the only thing we're calculating that's different is this overtime premium amount. Okay. And then to get that overtime premium, now, take the entire amount divided by the total number of hours. We get an average rate of 1401. Multiply that by 0.5 to get our overtime premium, and then we're going to add it together. 623.53. Did they tell us what the overtime, when he worked 37 hours at this, 14, had $11 an hour, 6 hours at this, overtime is 3 hours. Okay, so
It's telling you 6 hours overtime.
yeah. Oh, it's telling you the total overtime is 6 hours, but it's not.
But it's for the job.
Oh,
B.
it's saying it right here.
Job
Okay,
B.
add the overtime premium at the job B rate. So it's not in the problem, it's in the solution.
It's up there
Is it in the problem?
in job B.
But it's not saying well, here it's saying at the job B rate, but not up there. I don't know. Anyway, so it's at the job B rate, which is the $11 an hour. So we know that he works that overtime at the $11 an hour job. So we're just going to start with that same regular pay again. The overtime premium, which is the only thing that's really changing in each of these scenarios, is the overtime premium. We're going to calculate that. So that's going to be half of whatever that, the rate is for when he worked the overtime. Add that to the regular pay for $6.19 an hour. So method 3 is obviously the least beneficial to the employee, but the most beneficial to the employer. Questions? All right. Now, I'm going to go to a different. Any questions out from my virtual students? Right. So let's move along. So now we're going to start talking about converting salaries or pay period, whatever the pay period wage is, into hourly rates. This is where that 2080 can come in handy, as long as it is 40 hours a week, right? It just saves you a step in doing this if you use the 2080. All right. So first thing we have to do is annualize our salary. Okay. So, and these steps, you might want to write these down. Of course, the slides are up there as well, but these are just as a reminder for how this is done. This is a good thing to write down. So we're going to annualize our salary. How do we do that? I don't know what this is. I don't think that's, nope. So that means we're going to figure out whatever that salary is on an annual basis. So if we're paid $2,000 a month, we're going to multiply that by 12 months to get the $24,000 a year. Okay. So whatever that annual rate is, if we're paid, $7,000 every 2 weeks, semi-monthly. And we would take that 7,000 multiplied by 24, figure out what the annual rate is. Right? So we're going to annualize. I'll actually write these up here. And we're going to look at some examples here too. And then we want to calculate the regular weekly gross. Now, like I said, this is where knowing that 2,080, you can kind of skip a step, because what it's doing here is it's taking the annual amount and converting it to how much is made in a week. And then the next step is dividing that by the number of hours in the week. So if it's a 40-hour week job, you could just divide that by the 2,080 and skip one of those steps. But we'll go ahead and use their method here. So calculate weekly gross. Step 3, we're going to calculate the hourly pay. Step 4, we're going to calculate the overtime rate. And step 5 is add the overtime pay to regular gross. Okay, so those are our steps. This is, again, when we start with the salary, but we have to pay them overtime. Okay, so one of those situations where you've got a salary, but you're entitled to overtime because you're not an exempt employee. You don't fit one of those, even though you're paid a salary, you don't fit one of those categories of the administrative, the professional, the creative, all that. All right. So let's look at an example and we'll follow along with this. So we've got Farron, a non-exempt employee. He gets $1,500 a month. He is paid weekly and has 43 hours in one pay period. Calculate his gross pay. All right, so the first thing, we're annualizing his salary, right? So we're going to take the $1,500 a month times 12 months. So he's making $18,000 a year. Then we're going to take, so we're looking at his weekly gross, take that 18,000 down here, divided by the number of pays. Okay, so when we annualize our salary, let me think of how to word this. We're going to take our salary per pay, times number of pays per year. Will be the first step. How to analyze our salary. Second step here, we're going to then take our annualized salary so let me call this annualized salary. We're going to take the annualized salary divided by, what do we do here? Number of pays per year, or number of weeks per year. This is our weekly salary. Third one is we're going to divide our weekly salary divided by hours per week is our regular hourly salary, wage, I guess we could call it now instead of a salary, hourly wage. And then step 4, so that's our regular rate. Step 4, we're going to take our regular hourly wage times 1.5 to get our overtime hourly rate. And then in step 5, we are going to add, let's see, we're going to add step 2, or we're just going to take step 2, sorry, I'm thinking of the wording here. So step 2, result plus number of hours of overtime times step 4, result. Make sense? So we'll go through this again here. So first thing we did, let's just see if I described that properly. Okay, so took his salary per pay, $1,500 a month, multiplied it by the number of pays per year. He gets paid 12 times a year. Step 2, we took that annualized salary, and you can see we're carrying everything down. So this result goes down here. This result goes down here. This result here. This result is used in this calculation. So step 2, annualized salary, our result in step 1, 18,000 divided by the number of weeks in a year to get his weekly gross. We're going to take his weekly gross, 346.15, divided by the number of hours in a week to get his regular hourly wage. We're assuming it's 40 hours that he normally works in a week. If he normally works 35 hours in a week, then we would divide that by 35 to get his overtime rate. Or to get his regular rate and his overtime rate. And then the hours from 36 to 40, he'd get paid at a regular hourly rate, but over that, he'd get paid at an overtime rate. Okay, so step 3, weekly salary divided by 40 hours to get his hourly rate of $865. Then we're going to calculate the overtime rate, 865 times 1.5 to get his overtime rate. And then we're going to add, we have to multiply this by the number of hours that he actually worked in overtime. They told us 43 hours, so 3 hours in overtime. We're going to take that overtime, now it goes. We're going to take that overtime rate times the number of hours. We're going to add that then to the weekly rate. I tell you what, I'm going to take a picture of that and I'll put it up. Is that helpful at all? If it's helpful. If it's not helpful, well, you can take it or leave it then. So. You don't need a picture of me. Well, I take them because I'll post them. You'll see sometimes I've got ones from previous semesters as well that I've posted. Okay, so those are our steps. Let's look at another one. Yeah, oh, somebody has a question. And I think Andrew had a question too.
Okay.
Yes,
so
Lisa.
the amount of overtime he got was $38.94.
The amount of overtime, well, 3 times 12.98. 12.98 was the hourly rate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Do you have a question? Oh, okay. Anybody else? Okay. Let's continue on. Come back. Okay, example number 2. We'll see if we can't follow along with this as well. So here's E, non-exempt, again, $2,000 a month, but now instead of being paid, what was he paid? He was paid weekly? Was that his pay? Oh, a month. He was paid monthly. Farron was paid monthly. Now we've got somebody who's paid semi-monthly, twice a month. Okay. So, and worked 4 hours of overtime in one pay period. Okay, so here's our first step. We're going to multiply our salary per pay, 2,000, times the number of pays per year, 24. Okay, first one. So $24,000 a year. Then we're going to take that result, divide it by 24, get $1,000 semi-monthly gross. Now, my guess is you're all very smart. You probably could have done that without doing the steps, because, you know, $2,000 twice a month, they're going to get $1,000 of pay period, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I guess I wrote it down. You said $2,000 per month, right?
Yes, but she's paid twice a month. So she's going to get $1,000 for each pay.
Okay. Well, that's okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, and that's just the agreement that they had. You're going to get, this is what your salary is going to be, $2,000 a month, but we're going to pay you twice a month. So $1,000 for each pay period. So semi-monthly gross is $1,000. So let's look at the next step. We've got the semi-monthly gross to get the weekly rate. And actually we had two that kind of did this together, didn't we? Annualized. I shouldn't say week. I should say per pay salary. This should be the number of pays rather than. No, it's the number of weeks. That's right. So we took our annualized salary divided by the number of pays. I guess this is an extra step that they didn't. I might have to add another step in there because they've got an extra. The other one was easy because it was monthly. Now we've got that additional. We've got to divide that to get the so okay, $1,000 semi-monthly gross, $24,000 annualized salary divided by, this is where they did the annualized salary, divided by the number of weeks is 461.54. Oh, I know why they did that. So that, okay, so that you know what to add down here in the last step. Yeah, that's why they did that. Okay. Have I just totally confused all of you? Are you following along? They added an extra step here because it wasn't just because it's a semi-monthly. And we did this not to use in the next step, but to use in the last step. Okay, we could have left that to the last step too. Okay, so 24,000 annual divided by 52, so weekly rate of 461.54. She works 40 hours a week normally. Her hourly rate then is going to be $11.54. Take the weekly rate divided by 40. Get the overtime rate. We're going to take that regular rate times 1.5 for the overtime rate. Now we're going to, and remember, we're doing all this stuff, these steps really, in order to figure out what this overtime rate is. Right, that's our real goal. Here's figured out that overtime rate. Once we've got that overtime rate, then we can multiply it by the number of overtime hours and add it to her regular salary. So she gets $1,000 twice a month, plus she worked these 4 hours of overtime, and we calculated her rate of $17.31 an hour for overtime. Add those two together, $1,069.24. Okay.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do the same example on bi-weekly?
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think the next one is a bi-weekly. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Got that? Ready to move on to the next one? There we go. Bi-weekly. Now we've got a sheet. Non-exempt employee, $2,200 a month she's paid bi-weekly. Worked 11 and a half hours of overtime during a pay period. So again, this is every 2 weeks that she's paid. So we're going to annualize the salary, $26,400, because again, that's what she makes per month, but she's paid that amount in different, she's not paid it monthly, she's paid it every 2 weeks. So $26,400 divided by 26 pays per year to arrive at $1,015.38 for each pay period. Again, we want this information to use down here. Okay? So we're going to take that annualized salary divided by number of weeks, 52 weeks. Her weekly rate is 507.69. Now you could also arrive at that if you divided this by 2, because this is for 2 weeks. We're looking at it for 1 week. You could also divide that by 80, because that would be the standard hours. I mean, there are different ways to calculate this to arrive at it, but we'll use their steps. So 507.69 weekly. Divide that by 40, because that's how many hours she normally works, is 40 hours in a week. She gets $12.69 an hour. Now we can use that to determine what her overtime rate is. Multiply that times 1.5. Her overtime rate is $19.04, and she worked 11 and a half hours in overtime. So we'll multiply the overtime rate by 11 and a half, and then we'll add that result to her biweekly normal pay, regular pay. So in this pay, she's going to get $12.34.34. I'm assuming their math is right.
I mean, I have a easy thing to find the overtime rate. You can take a 26,400 divided by 2080, and then it's easy.
Right.
It's not you waste your time to do
Yes, exactly. Like I said, there are different ways of doing that. It becomes a little complicated if she's not, maybe she doesn't work 40 hours a week, she works 35 hours a week. Now we can't divide it by 2080, but we could take 35 hours a week times 52 weeks. I think that's like 1950 or something like that, hours. And then we could just divide it by that. Yes, there are other ways of arriving at these numbers. This is just to kind of remind you if you get lost, okay, what are the steps that I can follow to get to the right result. But yes, there are multiple ways. And that's why I said, you could also, this is each bi-weekly pay period, and we want to know how much she earned per week. Well, let's just divide that by 2, right? Why do we have to do this 26.5 divided by 52? It's going to arrive at the same number. Right? It just depends on, we all of our math skills are different, so it may be easier for some to do it one way rather than another. Okay.
And so, if somebody take this one and then you take other way, it's not marriage, because you want to make the same result.
Yes. Yeah. As long as you get to the same result, yes. But this just gives you a map to get there. You can use this map, or you can get there from another direction as well. If you find another direction that works better for you, that's fine. Okay. All right. Oh, I don't know if I want to get into this right now. Oops. Let's see if this is any different. Oh yeah, this is a fluctuating work week. So the difference between this one is, so she doesn't work a set 40 hours, she works between 35 and 40 hours every week. Let me see what method they used here to do this one. I don't know if I want to get into this yet, because we've only got 5 minutes. We'll wait on that. What I might do, let me, so there is this fluctuating work week example that's kind of similar to this. This would seem like a fluctuating work week because they're saying it's between 35 and 40 hours a week. But what they mean by fluctuating work week is if there's big differences. Like 35 to 40 hours isn't a big difference in hours per week. But if we're talking 1 week you work 20 hours, the next week you work 60 hours, the next week you work no hours. How do you figure that out when you're an hourly employee and you need to be paid overtime? So there are, again, three, I guess we like three different ways of calculating that. And these are called fluctuating work weeks. You'll see that I'm not going to go through this. We'll go through this when we come back. But this, oh, you can't see that. I have an example up here of the three different ways that I think, well, it's helpful for me to follow. Oh, okay. That was my office hours that I left. I thought I just closed out. This is on Blackboard under the lectures, other resources tab. So when you're going through, because you may start working on some of this homework and be like, I don't get this. So I've kind of got a roadmap up here of the three different ways to do it. The one that students have the biggest struggle with is this BELO plan and doing this calculation. So a BELO plan is when it's a very irregular work schedule, like the one I just described. Where are we here? So guaranteed compensation can't be for what there are specific requirements for it. And there has to be an agreement between the employee and the employer. That is the third example here. Like I said, I'm not going to go through this right now, but if you start to do your homework and you get into any of the BELO questions, where'd it go? There it is. This may be helpful to you to follow this. Okay, so we've got these salaried non-exempt employees where there's a fluctuating work week, and like I said, there are three different ways to do it. One of those ways is using this BELO plan method, but that's where a lot of students get confused by it. Okay, so when we get back, we've got and again, so I'm not here next week, so you guys have the week off as well. If you want, I also have the lectures up. So, I mean, I'm posting all of these, obviously, but from last semester, I also have the lectures up. So if you wanted to look ahead at my explanation, because I did the exact same explanation that we're going to go through in class, you could also watch that to kind of get ahead a little bit.
Yeah, because we have only one class and it's due the 14th.
Yes.
All the assignments are due.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So you can watch those. We will go through the rest of this stuff as well on that day, and we can do some homework questions as well. It'll be fine. We'll go through the fluctuating work week example. We'll go through a couple other ways of getting paid. Piece rate. So if you get paid by the production, like if you're in manufacturing, sometimes you get paid for each piece that you produce. You still have to make sure that they're paid overtime. So we'll look at how we calculate that, and then commissions as well are in there. And that's kind of it. Yeah, then we've got the summary. So we'll be able to, that stuff, we'll probably have maybe 45 minutes to go through homework, I'm estimating, on that Tuesday. Okay? So again, I'm going to have, I sent you out a message. I'll have my laptop with me. So if you have a question, but don't expect a response right away. Okay?
Your invitation is your invitation.
Yes, but I have responsibilities as well.
When I'm on vacation, I turn off my phone.
Well, that's good. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
I try to turn off my kids, but it doesn't.
Yeah, the kids don't. They never turn off, do they? All right. Any questions? Okay. All right. We will see you. Any questions out there in virtual land?
Do you have office hours tonight after class?
Yes, I'm in building 4.
Okay, why can I just stay online until everybody
Yeah.
gets done, and then I'll just ask you questions then?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna run down the hall real quick, but then I'll be back.
Okay, no problem.
I forgot how we got 550 again.
Oh, the 550 per hour. So was this, which example was this?
Job A, job B.
Let's see here. I can look at it this way. Oh, this is the 3 different methods of calculating overtime. So we took, because okay. So on the slide, they don't really make it clear, unfortunately. It says down here, add overtime premium at the job B rate. So job B rate is $11 an hour.
Okay.
We took half of that.
Okay.
So times 0.5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we got to 550.
When we're calculating like all the pay stuff and we get decimals, could we keep decimals or should we round as soon as possible?
The problem should tell you
Okay.
what it's looking for. If you run into one that doesn't tell you, let me know. But I think they are pretty specific. Sometimes it's hard to see in there. But I know most of the problems that should like be in red lettering to make it clear how to do that. Yep. I think most of them do want decimals, but to 2 decimal places.
Because like I was going through those 3 examples and I changed like the starting numbers so I could do the equation myself.
Yeah.
The steps myself. And I kept like all like 8 decimals that I had.
Yeah. So yeah, and sometimes you'll end up with a different result. It should also tell you when to round. So if they want you to round right at the beginning, like with your first calculation, or wait and round your final answer. So it should be pretty clear about that as well. Okay. Yeah, see ya. Let's see here. See you, Ben.
Thank you.
two, today we're gonna talk about overtime. We've already talked about minimum wage, and how that's calculated. We talked about tips and that tip credit from employers. And we're gonna move on to talking about the overtime provisions, and we'll look at how that is calculated as well. We'll probably get into some more detailed calculations on Thursday, but today just kind of get an introduction to all of those concepts. We're going to talk about some of the exceptions to the overtime provisions. We'll define what a work week is, because when we're talking about overtime, we're talking about hours over 40 hours during hospitals, nursing staff, physicians. Not that, I mean, physicians wouldn't be hourly employees, most likely. But some nursing staff or nurses assistants or pharmacy techs, those types of positions, if they're that enterprise. So payroll manager, right? That would be considered probably a category. Registered or, so now here's where we get pretty technical. Registered or certified medical technologist, or the regular rate exceeds 1.5 times the minimum wage. So that's at $10.88 per hour on the slide that we looked at earlier. Okay. Then, and all three of these have to be met, or exempt or not exempt. So employer cannot tell.
Are you back, Lisa?
An accountant, somebody who meets that criteria of being an exempt employee. They did talk about the highly compensated. So if the holidays off or vacation time are the number of weeks in a year, or the number of pays in a year that result based on these schedules. So if you're on a weekly pay schedule, you're getting, because you're processing, you don't have to process quite as frequently, right? They go through. Today is September 22nd. We are going to be finishing up our discussion of Chapter 2. Table 40 is going to be paid at overtime, but of course we're going to have different start and end dates with a semi-monthly or a monthly pay cycle. So those do pose the biggest challenge with regard to calculating that overtime. And again, we also talked about the fact that employers can have different pay schedules for different classes of employees. Maybe they pay executives once a month, but they pay their the rest of the. Or is there one in particular that works like this? Okay. Okay, so the Bella, that's going to be the next. Yeah, that's going to be the next conversation. I'll pull that one up when I go through the calculations for the Bella plan. Okay. Yes, because we got 3 different methods of calculating those fluctuating work week hours with regard. Let's not do the overtime premium approach right now. We're just going to do the regular approach. Okay. All this stuff out here. That's going to be times 4. All right. So we've got 40 hours, 650, 650, same thing. Either way.
Wait a minute. Could you talk a little louder and I'll do it with you guys?
No, I'm sorry. I'm watching a video from last semester. I'm trying to
okay. Sorry.
I'm trying to determine just to give you some guidelines about, or just to give you kind of a preview of when we come back.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, ask your questions.
Oh, I just wanted to just work through one problem because, you know, in order for me to see, I had to expand the screen, but then I can only see half the screen, and sometimes you was working on the other half, and I didn't realize you was working on the other half. So I just want to go through just one problem and not so much you do it, but you listen to me to see what I'm saying and see if that's what
Okay.
I'm doing.
Okay.
So,
So which problem do you want to look at?
I want to look at the mixed one, mixed hourly rate, where not where you pay the highest, but where you pay the average.
Here, let me get back there then. Okay. Okay. I've got that one up here. So are you looking at like the one from the slide?
Um, I wasn't looking at anything. I just wanted you to give me the number so I could figure out how to do it.
Okay.
I see I got half a screen. Is this something that we're
So
doing?
do you see me right now? Do you see
Nope.
the whiteboard? Do you see the
I see
whiteboard?
the whiteboard and the PowerPoint. It's a split right down the middle.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And do you see me as well?
Nope. Don't see you anywhere. I see your hand.
Okay. So for some reason you're not seeing the entire screen.
Right. I'm
Um,
not into the class. That's because I have to make it really, really big so that I can see. So
okay.
that's probably where I'm missing everything because let me make it smaller. Okay, now I see you in both
See,
screens.
I'm gonna just zoom in further.
Okay.
So now, is that better?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So let's look at, let me get rid of this. We can kind of do this together. So we want to, weird. I want to get to the right screen here. All right. You can still see me?
Yes. What time do you leave today?
Well, I can leave anywhere between 1:15 and 1:30 is fine.
Okay, well, hopefully we won't go that far because I get my shot today. Yay.
Get
I'm
your
so
shot.
excited. Yes, I want to be able to a shot inside my hip, some cortisone shot
Oh,
inside
you
the
get
hip.
your cortisone. Is it cortisone?
I think that's what they're giving me. I don't know. All I know is I just want to be able to walk. I just want to be able to stand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Standing is good.
Yes.
Standing is very good.
Now I'm getting a lot of ceiling. I don't think I need the ceiling.
Yeah, let's see. You should have the whiteboard.
Yes, I have the whiteboard.
Okay, and you see my head anyway.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You're in the bottom half of the screen. I get the ceiling.
That's because
the
I'm really
wall.
short. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'll kind of give you, so method 2. Can you see what I'm writing?
Not really. It's
Can you
very,
see it
very
bigger?
small.
Okay.
Yeah, bigger. So we're going to do method 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I want. Method 2.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is step 1. We're going to calculate earnings from all jobs. This is before we're not calculating overtime yet. So this would just be at their regular rate. So let's do an example here. Do I have room over here? Yeah. Okay, so let's say we've got 2 jobs, job 1 and job 2. job 1, we worked 23 hours. And job 2, we worked 20, we'll say also 23 hours. Job 1, we make $10 an hour. You still see all of that?
I
Job
can
2,
barely see it. It's really, really small.
okay, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Does that help?
Yep, that helps. And if you could go down a little further so I don't have, because really half the screen is the ceiling. I don't need the ceiling. Yeah, bring it.
I don't think it's the ceiling that you're seeing. I think it's because the
Up there with
ceiling
the
has
lights?
it's
Right,
what's
I
that?
see the lights. I see the lights and those silver round things and everything. I have a lot of that on the screen. I want it
Are
to
you
be
seeing?
more.
Is it the
Huh?
reflection? Is it a reflection?
No, you're really on right now. You're on the bottom. Yeah, scoot it down a little bit more. Not to the right or left, just down. Down, down, down. Yep. Now I only have a little bit of the ceiling. So yeah.
Really? That's
Yeah.
very odd. I don't know why that would be. Let me see something here.
When I go all the way down to the top of your computer, I can see the top of your computer.
Okay, can you see what's written on the board?
Yeah. Let me see if I can get it closer to me because I can see something, but it's not dark enough. Okay. Yes, I see it now. Calculate earnings from all jobs, right?
Yes. Can you see the job 1 and job 2?
Yeah. 23 at 10 and 23 hours at.
Yeah, I haven't made this one up yet. So we'll say 23 at 15.
At 15, okay.
Okay. So the first thing we have to do, so let's do step 1 over here. Step 1, we're going to calculate the earnings from all jobs. So we would take the 23 times 10, $230, plus 23 times 15, what's 23 times 15?
I got 23 times 15. That would be what? 230
45.
plus 1, 345.
Right, 345. So we're just taking our regular rates. We're not doing overtime yet. So we're going to add these two together. 75. So 575. Okay, so that's step 1.
Okay.
Okay. So step 2, we're going to divide the total hours worked and then multiply. We're going to take the result from step 1, step 1 result divided by total hours worked. Okay? So step 1 result was 575. So let's do 2 over here. So 575 divided by
46.
46.
Okay.
So 575 divided by 46.
Okay. I should have brought my calculator instead of my phone.
That's all right. 1250. Okay, so this is essentially the average rate per hour that they're earning.
Correct.
Right. So we're going to, then in step 3, we are going to multiply the overtime hours by the rate. So then we're going to take the step 2 result times the overtime hours. Okay? So,
Okay.
step 3, can you still see the board?
Yes.
Okay, so step 3, we're going to use that 1250
1250 times 6.
times 6. 75.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a step 4 where we're going to add, well, let me do it this way. So we're going to take step 3 result plus step 1 result.
Add step 3 plus step 1. Oh, okay, I get it.
So step 4 would be 575 plus 75 equals 650. Hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
And I'm going to take a picture of that too so I can post it.
Okay. Yeah, because that's very clear to me. So I
Okay.
hope everybody else do.
That's very strange that you see the ceiling. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
No, seriously, because I can see what's on the screen, supposedly,
Really?
and I don't see the ceiling.
Wow. And really half the screen might be filling.
Oh,
Okay,
you
so
are right. You are
isn't that
right.
beautiful? See that beautiful ceiling? Don't ask me why.
That is weird. What's going on? Was it like that the whole time?
No, just after class. I don't know what happened after class, but it was not during class. Well, I can't really say for sure because I expanded the screen and then I had to go side to side and up and down and side to side and try to follow you. So that was on my fault.
So
Just
can
so that
you
I
see
could
the you see the screen right now?
Yes, I can see the screen. I can see you and I can see your desk and I can see the floor.
And you can see the desk and oh, okay. This is really weird. This is very odd. Oh. Let's see. Do I have it zoomed somehow?
You know what? In step 2, we divided the total amount that the person made divided by 46 hours and got $12.50 an hour. But that $12.50 an hour, is that how isn't overtime supposed to be time and a half? Now I can't hear you.
We haven't calculated overtime yet at that point.
Oh, okay.
Trying to figure out what
All right.
the average regular rate is.
Oh, okay. So we got the average 1 week pay plus the average hourly rate, regular hourly rate for the extra 6 hours, and then we have to do the add the half.
Right.
Okay, okay, I understand. Okay. Let's see, so,
Okay.
so that'd be step 5.
We're done. There's only 4 steps. So once we have determined what the regular rate is, then we can use that, the average regular rate, then we can use that to, what did I do here? Step 2 results, 1250. Wait a minute. I forgot to divide by 2. I did something wrong.
Okay, well, delete that picture so you won't send it.
Okay, hold on a second. I did something wrong.
Okay,
Calculate, then take 1/2. Yeah, I forgot to do the 1/2 of the rate. All right.
so number 4 would be the half of the rate.
So let's see, divide by total hours worked.
Okay, so number 2.
You're right. So I need to add a step in here. Hold on a second.
Right,
I need to add a step. This is going to be 4 and 5. I'm going to add a step 3.
okay,
4, 5. So step 3 is going to be step 2 result divided by 2 or times 0.5.
divided
Step 2.
625.
No, divided by 2 or times 0.5.
Okay, it'd be 625. Uh-oh, is that me? I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, let me see here. I don't know what that is. Every once in a while it was doing that. Okay, so we need to, and this is going to be step 3 result, and this is going to be step 4 result. So this is going to be 4 and 5. That's 2. I'll put 3 over here. 3 is 1250 times 0.5 equals 625.
Right,
So this is going to be 625 times 6, which is half of this, 3750.
okay,
And then this is going to be 3750. So 5, so this is going to be 6. What do we have here? 6.
3750.
3750.
Wait a minute, where did you get the 3750?
63750. Is that right? So 575. Oh no, it shouldn't be 3750. What is this? So 2750? 675. No, 617.
So it'd be the 1250 plus
Oh,
the
this is, no,
625.
hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Okay,
I'm having it. So 50. So 7 plus 5 is 2. Carry the 1. 6, 1250. Sorry. Bad math. I'm going to take pictures again. Because I screwed up that first
okay,
one. Okay. So there are 5 steps.
okay, so it'd be the 1250 plus the 625 to get $18.
No, it's the 1250 times, well, or divided by 2. It's half of 1250. Whatever that is, half of it.
625.
625. And then we're gonna multiply the 625 by the number of hours of overtime.
6 hours. Ah, okay. Okay. I get it now. 625.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Come on.
All right.
Okay. Come on. Oh, come on. Come on.
What are you doing over there?
Trying to get my phone to switch the screen and you keep pushing the button and pushing the button and it just looks at me and like, what you want? Okay, so 6.25 times the 6 hours overtime, so equals 37.50. So then I'll take the 575 and add 37.50, and then that would be the total pay.
Yes, 575 plus the 37.50.
Okay, 602.50. So you got 612? You're right, 612. 612.50. Okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you so much for staying after.
You are welcome. Sorry for the little bit of a confusion there.
No, that's okay. The main thing is I understand now, so that's good.
Good.
All right, well, you have fun. You have a safe trip and back, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.